Welcome to Strawberry Shortcake, and this lab is part of our tools and equipment unit, so I'm going to do a real quick review. The main concept of this unit is learning the difference between processing equipment and heavy equipment. Processing equipment processes the food. It cuts, grinds, chops, blends, purees, slices. So your mandolin is processing equipment. Your food processor, your blender, your immersion blender, all of those are processing equipment. And you will be using that when you make the strawberry sauce for your shortcake. Heavy equipment is heavy. The stove, the convection oven, the industrial mixers, your sanitizer. It's heavy equipment that it doesn't move. You can't just pick it up and move it. It can be moved, obviously, but it doesn't just easily get moved like this. I can just pick up and walk and go put it away. So we're going to start with the shortcake recipe. And this is a very, very simple, quick bread type recipe. So all of your dry ingredients go in here. And the shortcake gets used using the pastry method. And you guys haven't done that yet. That'll be later in the quick bread unit. But whenever you cut in fat using a pastry blender, it's the pastry method. So this is all of our dry ingredients. And I'm mixing them with a wire whisk. This makes it mix real easy and make sure there's no lumps in your flour. You can also use a sifter if you want. If you're at home and don't have a wire whisk, you could use this. A pastry blender, you could use a fork. So I don't want you to feel you have to go buy all of this stuff to make it. The next step is we are going to cut in the butter and the shortening. So I'm just going to kind of scrape this out here. And you cut it in. And you're cutting this into tiny little pieces. So you have to keep working it, and as each piece gets covered with flour, you'll cut it again and it won't stick. So the more you do this, the smaller the pieces will get because they get covered with dry ingredients, obviously, after they get slided. And this is probably the longest step of this whole recipe, and it'll take you about 60 seconds. You want these pieces to be small so that every piece of shortcake is getting butter and shortening mixed into it. Okay. I don't see any large pieces. I'm going to kind of go through this, and if I see any piece that looks a little large, I'm just going to chop it a few times with the pastry blender. There we go. The next step is to pour in your half and half, and you need 3/4 of a cup. So on your measuring cup, it's where it says 3/4, or if you want to do it by ounces, that is 6 ounces. Okay? Either one works. They're identical or equivalent. And again, you always measure liquids in a glass measuring cup on a level surface and look at it at eye level. Okay. So I'm going to pour this in. Okay, and I'm going to stir this. You do not want to stir it with a wire whisk because the dough will all get stuck in the middle. And again, this is very quick. This will be a thicker dough. It's more like a biscuit dough, actually, than it is cake. Now, the first instinct of students is to add more milk because it's going to kind of dry. But I can show you a trick that will help, and I will be right back with that tool. The tool that will make this easier is a fork, and you can actually do all of the mixing with a fork. This will help break up any of these large clumps, and they have moisture in them, and that will help you pick up the dry flour that hasn't mixed in. Now, if you've worked this for quite a few minutes with the fork, and it is still really, really dry, then go ahead and drizzle in maybe a teaspoon of milk to help pick that up some of those dry ingredients. Now the reason it could be a little dry is depending on the humidity or how dry the flour is. Flour absorbs different amounts of liquid. Okay. So you always start with what the recipe says and then keep going from there. So I am going to add just a little bit. Now another trick you can use also is to use your hands after you've put on gloves to try to mix it in as well. Okay? So I'm going to take a very small amount, and you can see I'm just letting some drip. Okay? And it's starting to stick together for me, which is what you want. And that tiny little amount made all the difference. Okay. Just a little bit more over here. All right. Alright, so what we're going to do is you're going to get your baking sheet and line it with parchment paper. And again, I've written my name on here because when we've got 5 of these in the oven, it's easy to forget where you put it. They're all going to look pretty much alike. Okay, so you're going to take your portion scoop and kind of pack it with some dough and leave it here. Okay. And you may need to use your hand just a little bit to get them to stick together. But as the fat melts in these, they should all stick together. Okay? Now, these are shortcakes do not look perfect in shape like a cake will. That's why they're called shortcakes. They're shorter, obviously, but they're more of a biscuit type of product. Okay, if you see, we have all of our shortcakes here. Then the next step is to melt the butter. Students like to take this small amount of butter and put it in the microwave for 60 seconds. And when they get there, it is splattered all over the inside of the microwave. So if you hear a big pop, you know your butter exploded. Just means you have a big mess to clean up. This will probably take about 10 seconds, 15 at the max. Alright, so I'm going to go melt that, and then we're going to take our pastry brush it on, and then sprinkle it with some sugar before putting it in the oven. Okay, I'm back, and just an FYI, this took 15 seconds. Okay, so you take your pastry brush, and you just kind of dab it on here. This is going to add another buttery flavor to the outside of your shortcakes, as well as add kind of a little crisp to the outer shell or to the top. Alright, and then you take some sugar and you just lightly sprinkle them on. So I did all of those with just a pretty healthy pinch. Okay, alright, so these are going to bake, it says 15 minutes in our convection oven. That probably means somewhere around 10 or 11, so we're going to set the timer for 10 and check it in 10. And if it needs more, you can always put it in for longer. Okay, we'll see when we're back, and we are going to make the strawberry sauce now for our shortcakes. So, You need 8 ounces of strawberries, and I have rinsed these again because that is produce and they grow outside. And they need to be chopped, so you want to cut off the hull. That's what this little flower piece is. So I'm going to cut that off. And then what you're going to do is you're going to chop all of your strawberries. So I will be right back after that. Okay, we're back, and as you can see, I've chopped up all the strawberries. So I'm going to put them into a small saucepan. You're making a small amount of strawberry sauce, so you don't need a great big pan. Okay, it'll actually cook more like it is supposed to if it's in the right size pan. Okay. All right, so we're going to get this in here. Now, the reason you're cutting them and then you're going to heat them is to force the juice out of the strawberries. Okay. So I'm going to put these on about 6 or 7. All right. Now these have sugar in them, so they're going to burn quickly. All right. So you're going to it's going to take anywhere from about 2 to 4 minutes for these to really start juicing. All right. So we'll be back when that happens to show you what it looks like. Good. Okay. If you can see, these are boiling, and we're starting to get some nice juice out of the strawberries. So what you're going to do at this point is you're going to add your sugar. Okay. So we're going to sprinkle the sugar in, and again, that only took about 2 or 3 minutes, so we're adding in our sugar, and we're going to cook this for 2 minutes. So I am going to watch the clock so that I'm right at 2 minutes. Now at this point, you definitely want to keep stirring because sugar burns very quick, and once it starts burning, there's no turning back. Your strawberry sauce will taste horrible. All right, burnt sugar is not very tasty. And you can see the more we cook it, the more juice comes out of the strawberries. For all you science people out there, by adding the sugar, it changes the osmosis, the level of concentration on the outside of the strawberry, so the juice is going to the outside to equal out. And you probably know that as osmosis. All right, so that's what's happening here. We change the concentration to force more juice out of the strawberries. Okay? We have 1 minute 15 seconds left, so we'll be back in a minute. Let's take a look at this. We are right at our 2-minute mark, and you can see we have lots and lots of juice in here, so that is wonderful. So now the next thing we're going to add is cornstarch, and the purpose of cornstarch is to make this sauce get nice and thick. All right? So, for those of you who have had cuisine, you know that if you use flour and butter, it's called a roux. Well, when you use cornstarch and water, it's called a slurry. All right, so we're kind of making a slurry here. And cornstarch will make little lumps, so sometimes you have to press those out so that you don't have any clumpy. And it'll also, when we puree this, it'll get the rest of them out. So we're just going to cook this till it thickens up a little bit. This is a very fast process, and as I'm doing this, I'm trying to smash. My glasses keep fogging up. I'm going to keep smashing any of the clumps of cornstarch. Okay, it's getting nice and thick here. I'm getting mixed up between what's lumps of cornstarch and what's lumps of strawberries. Okay, an important detail is you cannot stop stirring this stuff or it will immediately stick to the bottom of your pan. Okay. Okay, what we're going to do now is we have a nice consistency here. It's thickening up, and it will continue to thicken up as it sits. I just see a few more clumps I want to break up. Okay, so I'm going to turn this off, and I'm going to get this off the heat so it doesn't keep cooking. Even though this is no longer conducting heat, it's getting hot. Okay? All right. So, there are different ways you can puree this, and I'm going to put my glasses back on. One way is with an immersion blender, and the tough part with this is there's not very much in here, so it's hard for the immersion blender blade to actually hit the sauce because we didn't make very much. So one solution to this would be to put it in a cup and puree it that way. You could also puree it in the food processor. I think I'm going to try the blender, and if it doesn't work, then I will go back to a cup and use the immersion blender. All right, so I am going to move this over here near my source of electricity. Now in class, we usually have 2 tables making it using the food processor, 2 tables using the blender, and 2 using the immersion blender so that you can see any method will work. All right, again, it's not, you don't need to go out and buy all this fancy schmancy equipment to make all of this work. Okay. I don't even own an immersion blender at home, so you don't have to go out and buy it. Okay, I'm going to turn this on. Okay, let's take a look at this. It may have already done it for us. Oh, it's pretty pureed. Okay, so if you look in there, we just have this nice strawberry sauce that we're going to use to make our parfaits with our strawberry shortcake. Okay, so we'll be back and we'll assemble. We have our strawberry, and I just put my fingers in there, so I will clean those off. All right, so we have our little shortcakes here. We have our strawberry sauce, and we have our Cool Whip. Now in class, we'll also have the aerosol whipped cream that you guys have commonly used in class. All right? And we're just giving you some different ideas. You can build your strawberry shortcake on a plate and make it look real nice. I'm going to build a parfait in a cup just to give you another idea of what you can do. So what I'm going to do first is I'm just going to take some of this and put it in the bottom of the cup. All right? And then I'm going to take some of my strawberry sauce, okay, and put that in there. And I'm going to kind of spread that around so you can see the red, you know, through the cup. All right. And then I'm going to take a bread knife, and I am going to cut my shortcakes into cubes. Okay. And I want larger pieces. Okay. So I'm going to take a few of those and drop them in. And now I'm going to add another layer of Cool Whip. Now, to make this look nicer, you could put the Cool Whip in a frosting bag so that you're not getting it all over the sides of the cup. Or if you're using the aerosol dessert topping, that will go in without making a mess as well. Okay, then I'm going to add some more strawberry. And then some more cake, some more of my shortcake. I'm going to cut another one here. And again, if you use a bread knife, it'll cut right through, nice and clean. Okay. And again, if you need a quick review, the bread knife has the serrated edge, a scalloped edge on it. All right. And I'm going to make one more layer here. And you could even get more creative with this if you wanted. You could have, you know, do strawberry sauce, Cool Whip, strawberry sauce, cake, strawberry sauce. You don't put strawberry sauce in between each level. Okay. That would be entirely up to you. And some more cake. Okay. I'm going to do one last dollop of Cool Whip, and again, if you have the aerosol, you could make that look really pretty. Okay. There we go. And so now you have a strawberry shortcake parfait to go. Enjoy.